it on.
Give me my word, not give me your word.
I give you my word on that night and that day, brother. We are side by side, and we will go to war.
It's because I'm Arn Anderson. You wouldn't have had me all these years as your confidant, partner, best friend, and certainly you wouldn't have had me a horseman. It's going to be the fight.
Hello, my name is Bob Bamber and welcome to the Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast. We're going back in the time machine to August of 1995 for Volume 2 of this month's show. Volume 1 is WWF, looking at SummerSlam. Volume 3 is a hybrid show, really. We're starting in Japan, reviewing the IWA King of the Deathmatch tournament final between Cactus Jack and Terry Funk. Genuinely lots of explosives in that show. Second half of that show, or more like the second three quarters, is Del, Tom and Kieran looking at ECW. And in part 4, which for people who keep up to the date with these things, actually went online about 3 weeks ago, we are in Korea looking at the WCW / New Japan Pro Wrestling Collision in Korea show. But we are here on part 2 for WCW. I'm being joined by Del Muir. Del, hello.
Hi, Bob.
And Wayne Lythgoe.
Hello there, Bob.
My voice is a little bit croaky. When you get to the ECW part, you'll have heard what my voice sounded like 4 or 5 days ago. So I'm hoping to get through this show, but Del is on standby to jump in if need be, but I think we'll be alright. Del, kick us off with the news.
Yeah, WCW, Bob, they've all but confirmed the acquisition of 4 of the hottest independent talents in the country ahead of their debut on their new TV show next month in Monday Nitro. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko and Sabu are all expected to sign deals, with Sabu's run seemingly just for a few dates. The other 3 are expected to sign 90-day contracts that start in October. The news was well received, understandably, in ECW, with Paul Heyman declaring war on WCW and leading fans to chant things like, "Bischoff takes it in the ass."
The signings followed a very revealing edition of the WCW hotline hosted by Terry Taylor earlier in the month, where he reportedly threw Benoit, Guerrero, Malenko and WWF bound Al Snow under a bus. Taylor knocked them all for having demands above the station, particularly on Guerrero, claiming that he'd never drawn any money, which, if we're being kind to Taylor, is incredibly ignorant.
And WCW themselves hosted Clash of the Champions 31 this month at Daytona Beach in Florida. A largely uneventful show, but one that did feature Hulk Hogan in a not-to-be-missed live appearance on the Dungeon of Doom. Hogan's in-ring involvement actually aired in the live edition of Main Event that broadcast immediately prior to the show, defeating Kamala. And in the main event of the Clash, Vader defeated Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, which started the breakup of the Flair and Anderson partnership in a handicap match. And Sister Sherry earned the Harlem Heat a tag title shot at Fall Brawl. That's after she pinned Colonel Robert Parker whilst kissing him. Sherry knocked herself out, in storyline at least, and after coming to, is now madly in love with the Colonel.
Sting's reportedly made a push for longtime friend Lex Luger to be signed by WCW. Luger's contract with WWF expires in October. Elsewhere, WCW will reportedly be getting $38,000 from TNT for the WCW Monday Nitro show starting next month, which is significantly less than the $100,000 figure they were expecting. Based on those numbers and WCW's initial commitment to taping episodes live most weeks from new arenas, the show will most certainly be a money loser.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me at this time, a couple of men who are going to be in action tomorrow night at the Clash of the Champions, live here on TBS at 7 o'clock following the live main event. Double A, Arn Anderson, along with the 11-time WCW heavyweight champion of the world, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Arn Anderson, a very impressive showing here on Saturday night as a warm-up for tomorrow night.
I'm going to use an analogy from National Geographic. You know how a pack of wild dogs takes down the lion, the king of the jungle, Gene? They run him, and they run him, and they nip at his heels until he just gives out a gas, and then they rip his throat out. Well, Vader, Daytona Beach is our jungle, and we're going to run you. Let me just tip our hand. We're going to run you and run you until your mouth is hanging open and your tongue's hanging out. And then we're going to pounce on you like you owe us money, pal. Telling me, is Vader tough? Is Vader tough? Well, where is he now? Come on, Vader. Come on, hey, Vader. Vader! Where are you? Come on. Come on, Vader. Come on. Come on. Come on, Vader. Come on. You know why he won't come out here? You know why? Because I want WWE. I was the enforcer, the baddest man alive. Tomorrow night, Vader, I'm begging you. I'm begging you, Vader. Come on out. Lay a hand on me. He'll kill you. He's the enforcer. He's WWE. He's my main man. And tomorrow night, Vader, you are gonna sweat. You are gonna hurt. And you, big man, are gonna pay the price of jumping on WWE and the nationwide. Come on, man. Come on, please. Come on, come on.
Can I have a microphone back?
Where's Vader?
Obviously, he's not here.
He's not afraid of WWE.
He would have been out here by now.
Afraid of WWE. Look, Glenn, there's nothing between Vader and us but air and opportunity, and the air is raw.
Gentlemen.
And we come back in, and we're actually, well, we're quite recording live. If you're expecting the TV review, I'm going to do it now. Essentially, it was, so short before the clash. There was no massive justification of recording it as a pre-tape. So we start with WCW Saturday night on August the 5th. Jimmy Hart talks after a Renegade squash match and says the Dungeon of Doom are making a mistake challenging Hogan on the main event. The Blue Bloods defeated John B. Bad and Marcus Alexander Bagwell after Robert interfered with the referee's back turned. And then we move on to the main event, which aired immediately prior to the clash on August 6th. We open the show with Randy Savage. Savage joins Bischoff and Dusty Rhodes on the stage and says that he hasn't seen Hogan like this before. John B. Bad busts out a flip dive to the outside during his victory over Big Boa. The Nasty Boys defeated Los Especialistas and Flying Brian defeated Marcus Alexander Bagwell. In the main event, Hulk Hogan defeats Kamala of the Dungeon of Doom by disqualification. Hogan no-sold a body slam during the match, but the match was stopped after the inevitable running of the Zodiac and the Shark. While Sting and Savage ran out to make the save, it's worth noting that Hogan seemed perfectly capable of handling all four members of the Dungeon of Doom attacking him on his own. Del, we'll quickly look at this bit before we move into the main show. The match itself was nothing to write home about, and I don't know if you two have seen it beyond the very quick last 30 seconds that would have aired on the Clash. But we're back to where we are with Hogan, where we've been, so many times before, or certainly, in the WCW run, where, he seems to be unable to let his ego aside just for a little bit, just to show a bit of vulnerability, and then we get to the point where it's like, well, why do you need 4-on-4 at full brawl? You're perfectly capable of handling these guys on your own. I know Manga's going to be involved in that. We'll come to that in a bit. But yeah, just Hogan being Hogan, no selling a body slam from Kamala, and then all four guys come out, and they cut to like this panic Savage and Sting kind of storming down the aisle to save Hogan. We cut back to a wide shot, and Hogan's just kicking ass.
Pretty much. It's kind of weird with Hulk. I mean, that's a year now that he's been here, and it's like, there's never really been any kind of level of vulnerability built up, as you say. I mean, the point of having a supreme babyface atop the mountain is there's going to be some times where he gets knocked off, and then it's the kind of joy of the climb back up that kind of gets you that emotional investment. I mean, I know Hogan's not exactly brand new to a big wrestling audience in the country, but to WCW there are going to be some people that's just heard this name, the same as when Flair came in 92 at the WWF. It was just a name, and then you're seeing him evolve in front of your eyes. But with Hogan, it's just like, it's as if he's Superman, but they've got a door policy where you're not allowed to bring any kryptonite in. And it's like, well, how can you get invested in that when he'll be fine, he'll win. Hogan wins, always wins. And it's like, try and give the fans something to get behind, but as you say, it's just Hogan being Hogan, innit?
Wayne, I'll take you back to what I think was the first show you ever did with us, the Clash in January. And we had the bit there with Vader coming out and laying out Hogan, and that great, what would have been a really effective finish of the show. And then we get the bit where Hogan pops up, scares Vader off, and essentially just nullifies the entire effect of the angle. And Wayne, he's doing it again.
Yeah, nothing changes with him. It's I think that show I did was back in February. Oh, sorry, you said, didn't you? It was January, and all this time nothing's changed through the months. And I share the same sentiment as Delph. You've got to get invested in your top babyface, and the only way you can do that is by checking the ego at the door, and not jobbing, but obviously putting yourself over to guys, getting beat down, and that's the only way you can build yourself up. So, you've got all your fans, that can get invested in you and give you that big push and go over even more.
And we move on to the Clash of the Champions 31. Del, have the results, please.
Yep, we start with Sting and Road Warrior Hawk. They defeated Meng and Kurosawa of Colonel Parker's stud stable. Got Diamond Dallas Page beating Alex Wright. The Renegade, the champion, World Television Champion, defeated Paul Orndorff and retains. Harlem Heat and Sister Sherry, they defeated Bunkhouse Buck, Dirty Dick Slater and Colonel Robert Parker himself in a 5-man and a lady tag team match. And in the main event, Big Van Vader defeated the team of Arn Anderson and Ric Flair in a handicap match. And that finishes us off, Bob.
Wayne, what do you think of this show?
Well, I'll give it its due. It was better than last month's pay-per-view.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, but not much better. There's still something missing with WCW. It needs a real shot in the arm, a different direction. It just seems to be going through the motions with a lot of things at the moment. And I'm just starting to, just think about different things regarding it. I'm starting to lose patience with it. It just seems same old. Especially on the Hogan front. But the show as a whole, for what it was a clash. It wasn't a pay-per-view. As I said, it was better than last month, and I'd probably give it, it was probably on an average scale.
Yeah.
I agree with Wayne that it was better than last month's pay-per-view, Bob, but I'm more tempted just to say it was better because it was on free TV. Instead of it being that you had to pay for the pay-per-view itself. I mean, it was a kind of weird setup. I mean, the show itself didn't drag. I would say the 2 hours went by kind of quick, but it was the card itself. I think they could just have done a lot more. As you ran through the main event results prior to this, and you'd like say Pillman and kind of Hogan on that, but then you're getting matches here with Diamond Dallas Page and the Renegade, and it's just, I don't know, it wasn't their best offer, but as we've seen in recent times with WCW, it certainly could have been a lot worse, I'd say.
No, there is certainly something to be said for, there are a couple of matches that would have easily been better than stuff that aired on the Clash that actually aired on main event. Johnny Bad against Big Bell wasn't bad, and neither was the Pillman match. But yeah, this was an odd show. I mean, it was weird. At times it just felt like they were stalling. I mean, I watched Clashes before, and I can't recall so many Clashes where there were just such big gulfs of time between matches. Maybe I'm wrong, and I know, given the TV format, they will invariably do that more than they do on pay-per-view. But there was a time, there were a couple of times between, probably in the second half of the show, or certainly there was a point where they were getting up to the top of the second hour, and it's like, they put this video package in. I think it was ahead of the 6-person tag, and it was like, they put this 3 or 4 minute video package together just to get the match started at the top of the second hour. The matches themselves weren't offensive. They weren't any better than that. I think it's testimony to, we'll come to it, but it's testimony to Parker and Sherry that the crowd were pretty dead for that tag match until those two got involved. The main event wasn't bad. Right against DDP wasn't bad. But other than that, I think my conclusion at the end of this show is that, you watch a show like Bash at the Beach last month and it's like, should I go back and watch this? It's like, yes, if you're a glutton for punishment, go back and watch this because it was really bad. This wasn't really bad, but it was incredibly missable. And that's pretty impressive, but we'll come to each match in turn as we get to it. We start obviously with we're in Daytona Beach, and Michael Buffer is on hand to introduce the first match. It's Manga and Kurosawa with Kannarot Parker versus Sting and Road Warrior Hawk. We start with all four men in the ring brawling. Hawk shoulder tackles Kurosawa and throws him to the outside. Meng follows as the trio regroup. Hawk headbutts Kurosawa and tags in Sting, who hits a vicious-looking atomic drop. Kurosawa lands awkwardly. Meng hits Hawk with a clothesline, but Hawk stands his ground and the pair square off. Kurosawa takes Hawk to the outside, drapes him over his shoulders and drops Hawk onto his back. That was quite impressive. Back in the ring, Kurosawa whips Hawk into the corner but eats a big boot for his troubles. Hawk hits a swinging neckbreaker on Meng. Hawk body slams Kurosawa, hits a clunky looking splash and can only get a 2. Hawk hits a powerbomb but Meng breaks out the pin. Sting goes to the top and takes out Meng and the faces have the control. With all four men in the ring, Sting and Hawk hit clotheslines on Meng. Sting picks up Kurosawa. Hawk hits a clunky as all hell clothesline in a double team move and the faces win the match. After the match, with Hawk selling, Kurosawa jumps in the ring and yanks Hawk's shoulder back in an arm submission briefly, and Hawk writhes around in pain. This segment is slightly funnier when you go back and watch it, as Nick Patrick calls for the medical attendant for the Hawk injury before Kurosawa had even locked in the move, which is quite funny bit of mistaken timing. Wayne, what do you think of this match?
I think it could have been a lot better with Hawk not being in there. I was looking forward to seeing a bit more of Kurosawa. As I said, taking Hawk's inclusion out of it, I think it would have flowed a lot better. My gripe with the match or the formula was, I think it would have been better for Sting to be the one in getting beat down, because Hawk wasn't selling anything at all. Seemed to me that he just saved all his selling for right at the end. He just bottled it all up and thought, I'll save all this for when I get my arm broken. And there's a few, quite clumsy. Most of it being on Hawk's part, just seemed, and at the end when everyone was in there, it just seemed like there was no control, a bit. It was all a bit clumsy, as I said, and the Doomsday device. I understand that when Sting's picked him up, he's probably picked him up different to our Animal, so it picks him up on the wrong side. But Hawk should have realised the way that Sting was holding him, and it just seemed to clothesline Sting from the opposite way, which obviously Kurosawa ended up falling over due to it. To talk about Meng and Kurosawa though, when we touched on the Dungeon of Doom last month, and if you're wanting to put a stable together of monsters for a Dungeon of Doom, rather than just having a rehash of Three Faces of Fear, bring these two guys in. Get these guys built up, because you could proper push these as the stable and make that stable be a force for Hogan. But the match itself, brilliantly
done, Wayne. Given that we're about to get the Meng into the Dungeon of Doom in about 2 weeks' time, or 2 weeks after this show. Well done. We'll keep your analysis right in line with the current events. Carry on.
No. Well, I was just going to say, I said the match as a whole, I think it should have been Sting in the one that was getting the beat down and then getting the hot tag on Hawk rather than the other way around, because, as I said, Hawk just wasn't selling anything, and that ruined it for me.
Del,
I seem to moan about this every time I'm on a WCW show, Bob. Every time I do a power ranking, Sting is opening this show on free TV. He must have been in ring for 2-3 minutes tops. I mean, he's a former WCW champion, an NWA champion, an international champion. why is this man getting so overlooked? It's like, I understand.
I think him and Undertaker should form their own promotion.
Pretty much, and I mean...
popular wrestlers that aren't getting pushed.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I know there's the full Hogan factor, but I mean, we don't need to be seeing Sting in a main event carrying a belt for a year. We just want him to get what he deserves. I mean, the crowd go daft for him. And it's just like, I don't know what the boy has to do to get pushed, as I say, whether it's kind of starting his own fed with the Undertaker and they maybe book themselves into a main event, I don't know. Kurosawa I thought was pretty good. He's got a bit of potential. There's a lovely standing overhead suplex to Hawk outside. Hawk's just Hawk, really. He couldn't sell ice cubes to an Arab, I don't think. Meng, great presence as always, but just a pretty uninspiring starting. I mean, why, Bob, you'll maybe be able to answer me this. Why was Michael Buffer to start this show when it's like a free TV show? He's just announcing a random tag match to start. I mean, I don't know, it just kind of sums up WCW's business now for me, I think.
I'm guessing they've got Buffer in on a contract that says he works 12 shows a year, I would guess. I'm struggling to come to any other conclusion. But yeah, this was, I think coming back to one of Wayne's points earlier, I mean, you know, Lord Christ, I think I'd be front and centre for a Hawk Renegade match, just to see how bad that could possibly be. But yeah, I mean, Hawk's been around for a few months now, and it's like, he's offering nothing. And he's not even especially over, but he's offering nothing as an in-ring presence. And I think Wayne's right. You know, they got Sting and Hawk with the wrong way round in this match. Kurosawa, for what the briefings we saw him, was good, and Manga, as we say, will end up in the Dungeon of Doom. But yeah, nothing massively to write home about. Wayne, to go back on, or to continue along Dell's line, we did speak about this last month, but it's another month with Sting opening the show.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we saw it last month, and again, sharing the same sentiment as Dell on that one. He doesn't need to be in the main event, but get him higher up. You know, I view him. You know, I view a lot more of him than him being an opener. And he was non-existent in this match. You know, all throughout the match. It just seemed the focus was on Hawk and obviously Kurosawa was in a match. Was mostly in the match, but yeah, Sting just seemed non-existent, and you know they need to just change the stance on him a little bit more and push him further up, definitely.
Well, Bob, Sting opened.
Go on, mate.
In the Renegade as a title holder, it can't be summed up any better than that. Sting opened, and Renegade's got a belt. Come on.
Well, cover your ears if you don't want to be spoiled by what we believe is going to happen in September. We know the first bit we know. Sting will be in the main event at Full Brawl, admittedly amongst 7 other guys, but he will be there. And the flip side of that is that apparently Renegade will be losing his title next month to
what?
Yes, I know. That is what I think Dave Meltzer is reporting in the Observer this month, but not before time.
He's dropping that for the main event push, surely.
Perhaps. Oh God. Oh no, he's going to join the Dungeon of Doom, isn't he? Oh yeah. Oh, I was so happy when I heard that news, but Del, you just
trust me.
You made me realise the bigger picture. Del, let's come to this quite amusing ending. So Kurosawa puts it kind of cinches in an arm lock. He just kind of whips it back and then buggers off. And then they cut to the replay, and you see Hawk, before Kurosawa does it, kind of selling, because it's the end of the match, and Nick Patrick runs over to the ropes by the R-way and calls for some assistance. While he does that, we get Kurosawa locking in the arm lock. That was a hilarious piece of misstime from Nick Patrick.
To start with, I actually really liked it, because I mean, I know I've kind of ripped on Hawk, just not been able to sell, but the end of it I thought was really good. The kind of putting on of the manoeuvre, the Hawk kind of almost looking actually in pain for like the first time I've seen him in I think about 15 years. But then as you say, as soon as the replay goes, and it's like, we moan a lot about the consistency of rules, especially over the top rope in WCW, but hats off to Nick Patrick for his vision, because that was exemplary.
And we cut to a seemingly live shot of the Dungeon of Doom. Wayne, there are 3 implications of the Dungeon of Doom being shown live. Either 1, the Dungeon of Doom is in Daytona Beach. 2, what's number 2? Number 2 is that the Dungeon of Doom is contained entirely in the back of a lorry, presumably Blacktop Bullies. Or, number 3, the entrance to the Dungeon of Doom is located in a portal somewhere backstage. But wait, I don't quite understand the live Dungeon of Doom concept. That didn't make much sense.
No, not at all. And I was going to come to it later, but obviously you brought it up now. But the fact that you had when Hogan was in there getting the beat down, and then
we can get to it later, Wayne. I'll
save that for later then.
Cool. I bring it up because they did show a brief still of it while they were there. But yeah, very interesting even so. We come back from the break, and Mean Gene Okerlund says that Hawk may have suffered a hyperextension to his elbow. He is backstage, or Okerlund's backstage, with Parker, Buck and Slater. Both Buck and Slater imply they'll hold nothing back if Sherry ends up in the ring with them. Parker says he's ready for romance. And we move on. It's Diamond Dallas Page with the Diamond Doll versus Das Wunderkind, Alex Wright. A production error, it seems, sees Wright come out with no music, although given, Wright's status at the moment, that may well not be an accident. And also given that his music is horrible techno tunes, that may be a blessing. The crowd don't react at all. Wright goes for a pair of schoolboys on Page, who seems less than impressed. Wright then hits a pair of drop kicks that sends Page to the outside. Wright sees Page complaining, storms across the ring and hits a flying crossbody to the outside. Wright gets thrown into the corner, hits a moonsault over Page into a drop kick. Page hits an inverted backbreaker. The Doll holds up a 10 sign. Page then hits a swinging neck breaker, which gets another 10 from the Doll. Wright goes for a backslide and almost gets a 3. Page charges Wright in the corner. Wright moves and DDP rams his shoulder into the ring post. Wright then manages to trip up Page. Wright hits a lovely spinning back kick, then a high knee. He follows with a lovely high angle drop kick. The referee's count seems a bit slow and DDP kicks out. That draws a few boos from the crowd. Wright goes for a 10 punch, but DDP picks him up and Wright lands face first on the turnbuckle. Wright goes for a German suplex into a pin. Page barely kicks out. Wright goes for another tope, but seems to catch his foot, and Page moves out of the way. Wright lands hard on the outside. Page rolls right into the ring and picks up the 3. Del.
There is definitely a couple of things I liked in this one, Bob. I think I actually quite liked the no music at the start. It wasn't something I instantly picked up on, but when you see Alex Wright coming out, he's got the kind of Europop techno in the background. He's kind of doing his dance and things like that. Because there was no music, there was no dance, which kind of instantly made him a bit more legitimate to me. And I kind of liked that, whether it was by design or surely if it was, they would have had other music instead of nothing. But I quite liked that. The Kimberly gimmick with the scorecards, I quite like. Maybe kind of change up the numbers a bit. I think she just brought the 10 this month, but that's pretty good to try and get a bit of.
Well, every move that DDP hits is a 10, Del.
Pretty much, but I mean, we never even get any kind of 8s or 9s or anything. I mean, I think that's quite a good tool to try and get a bit of heat building between them, because I think the fans are clearly going to side with Kimberly before they side with Page, and I think that could be something that could kind of almost get a bit of dissension between them two and maybe cost Page a win, something like that. But I do like the gimmick itself. The finish I thought was pretty good with the full Page Wright goes to the outside, misses the moves, just gets rolled in and gets a win. It was kind of similar to the Sparky Plug finish with King of the Ring at June with yourself and Jeff Parker, when it's just like they get the foot up, top rope splash, gets knocked out in the chin, and then that's the 3. It just come out and over, and it's kind of a really believable ending. I just genuinely think Alex Wright gave him maybe a year or 2. I think this boy could kind of do wonders, pardon the pun. I think he could be really something.
Wayne.
Yeah, I had a lot more optimism going into this than I did for the DDP Dave Sullivan match at the Bash at the Beach. Just to go back on the music, it was a bit of a shame, and I can see where Del's coming from in the sense of there's no dancing, and he's coming out. But the flip side of that, I don't know whether it was just the crowd being dead, but that just got to show me coming across through the TV that that he's not over at all, Alex Wright. He's coming out with no music, and the crowd's not cheering for him, whether it's because they didn't hear his music or whether he's just not over. But considering that the crowd was pretty hot for Sting, the match was right. I don't think that they were sat on the hands or anything like that. So that it was just a bit of a shame on that front. I'll go back to DDP as well. I think he's really, really improving from each match. I keep seeing on him month on month. Whether he's ready for a big push, I very much doubt it. But if he keeps cracking on the way he is, then there's only one way that he can go, and that is up. The finish was a bit weird, but in all honesty, that doesn't surprise me with the WCW. They often throw out these weird finishes. I mean, we saw it last month with the tornado tag, with the triple threat tag, whatever it was classed as, with the way that Booker took the pin and ended up winning. So that's not the norm. But I didn't know whether I come away thinking, was that really the finish, or has he really hurt himself there and they've actually end the match? But apart from that, I enjoyed the match for what it was. It's a shame that they've moved direction with Alex Wright. Like Del says, you give this guy a year to 18 months, and he can be a really good performer to keep an eye on. Yeah,
I quite enjoyed this. This is another like Alex Wright's third match in 4 months, if we ignore his, a weird kind of placement, given that you felt like after Bash at the Beach last month, where he was the losing kind of half in a tag team on the main event show, you kind of thought, oh, okay, that's probably it for him. Here he was back on pay-per-view, on a major show rather, on a losing end, but still, against DDP, and, obviously they wanted a guy if they thought, Wright can go and he can have a good match with Dynamite Page, and he did. This was one of the best matches on the shows, but Wright's quite solid these days, and he's athletic enough. And he played off Page quite nicely. As for the finish, I quite liked it. I come back to what Jeff said about the Bob Holly finish at King of the Ring. It's nice when a wrestler just gets caught. It's nice when a guy goes for something, messes it up, and it's like, right, he spark out. He lost the match. But yeah, good match. Dale, what do you think of DDP?
I don't get it. I mean, the storyline wise, I don't know, was it him that won the lottery, or Kimberly won the bingo or something? And that, if it was real, would be understand.
It was DDP allegedly won $13 million gambling, I believe is the official.
Was it gambling? I thought it was Kimberly at the bingo or something. But I mean, that would be believable. They've got all this money. They've bought their way into doing something that he's always wanted to do. He's not really got any kind of good look about him. He's kind of 40 going on 60 with the looks of him. There's not a lot of athleticism there, but he's bought his way in. It's like he's just slipping Turner and Bischoff a couple of grand to get onto a show so he can get all his mates running and they can watch it in the bar or watch it at the house or something. It's like you can believe that, but seeing it as that being just a storyline, and it's like they seemingly see a lot in this guy. I just don't get it. I mean, with like, 3-4 years ago, he was with Big Scott Hall in the Diamond Mine, and it was like, he was just in the background, he was quiet, he was big, he looked believable, but now it's like, he's front and centre, and it does nothing for me whatsoever. It's, I think the best thing about the full act's Kimberly and her scorecards, but I just don't get Page at all.
It also helps that Dallas Page is very, very close friends with Eric Bischoff.
Funny that.
You may notice why is he, a guy that seemingly has no connection with Hogan and getting quite a big push. That would be why. Media opening is backstage with Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Anderson says Vader is hiding and he's a nervous wreck. Flair briefly gets on his knees and begs Vader to lay a hand on him with Arn by his side. I move on to the World Television title match. It's Paul Orndorff versus the Renegade with Jimmy Hart. Renegade storms to the ring, but Orndorff attacks him as soon as he gets under the ropes. Renegade hits a clothesline, then a body slam, all still while wearing his title belt. As Renegade poses on the turnbuckle, Orndorff runs up to him and hits a back body drop. Orndorff throws Renegade to the outside, which only seems to anger him, so he sends him to the outside again. After stalling on the apron, Renegade hits a slingshot crossbody, and that's enough for the 3. Wayne, the only thing Renegade's got going for at the moment is that his matches aren't very long.
And that is it. Nothing else but that. I just don't understand how this guy can be in the position that he is. Like Del said before, you had Sting opening and Renegade's a title holder. I mean, a parallel universe or something like that, because the guy's got little to no wrestling skills, and yet he's got a title. It just doesn't make sense at all. If it's not a win by a back body drop like we saw last month, it's now a slingshot crossbody. All I'm getting from this is, does the guy not have a finishing move? Because
it's weird. He does. He does do it in his squash matches on WCW TV. He does do a top rope splash/diving headbutt, which looks half decent, and yet he never seems to do them on pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it, and on pay-per-view, and that's obviously when he's going against the guys that he should be doing this finishing move, putting himself over. I mean, how else is he going to get over? He's the move that he ends up. It looks like he's scraping these wins through the moves that he's just pulling out of his out of the bag, and I understand why they're pushing him. Not that I agree with it.
Do you?
I do. Well, if you look at it, they're obviously doing it on a merchandise thing.
They've kind of, WWF did get in contact and say, watch what you're trying to do here. We still own the rights to the Ultimate Warrior gimmick. Right. Which is why since his debut, he doesn't quite have the same kind of music and he doesn't quite have the same kind of mannerisms. But yeah, I kind of understood it while it was a blatant Warrior knockoff. Now it's a guy playing a version of the Warrior that doesn't infringe on WWF's copyright, which is even less understandable.
Well, when you put it like that, and obviously with obviously the involvement of WWF and the Warrior gimmick, etc., then maybe. But that was my view on it. Is that the only reason this guy is in the position that he is for them to just make as much money they can from him and then get rid of him. And that was my only view on it. But it's just all too rushed. The guy's just not ready to be in a ring, and even the crowd know that. I mean, we saw it again. He's getting booed, and the guy's a title holder who's meant to be a face, who's managed by Jimmy Hart, who also manages the top babyface of the company. So it just doesn't go hand in hand.
Del,
you asked me at the start, Bob, what I thought of this, and I kind of said that it was kind of weird the card that they'd made up here. It's like every match we've had so far has got potential, but kind of sums it up. I mean, you've got Sting and Meng in the first match, but you've got Hawk just bringing it down. You've got Alex Wright in the last match, but you've got DDP. Now we've got even Orndorff in this one is seen as a good guy, which I think the crowd actually kind of looked at it like that as well at times, but Renegade is just, it does nothing. But it's not just like an opinion for me, it seemingly does nothing for anybody. It doesn't make Orndorff look any better. It doesn't get the crowd involved. It doesn't do anything, and it's like every match has got half of the jigsaws in place. It's like they've done the outside of the jigsaw, but just getting in the middle, it's like, never mind. And it's like, Orndorff, I thought, was in a pretty good place with Roma. Roma could do a lot of the work. Obviously Roma's not there anymore, so Orndorff's now kind of doing singles. I think you could easily get another couple of years out of Paul Orndorff if he's protected and he's in a tag team. He can get the heat, but he doesn't need to do much of the work. He's got the psychology, but he doesn't need to gassy sell it. But then if you put him in singles, there's a couple of months, I think, at best in this, and it's like, can we not bring in, I don't know, is there no a Regal or what, bump Pillman up for the main event and bring him into this? Don't maybe put him with the Renegades, it's just going to make Brian Pillman look bad, but you could easily just shuffle the card about a little bit and make that a couple of good matches, and as you said earlier on, kind of jokingly, we don't want to see Hawk and Renegade, but at least if we're talking Renegade in the same match, it would just be one shit match, and then we'd maybe get something else good. But with these guys just getting into spots, it's just, I don't know, it's just like, how can you make a reasonable thing bad? Seems to be the logic, I think, of these matches, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think kind of Wayne struck on a good point, which is, why is Renegade at this stage in the game being managed by Jimmy Hart? How does that help Hogan? And I've got no idea. Is the answer, long story short. And I know Hogan introduced Renegade, back, it would have been around the Flair feud, I think, because Hogan needed, someone to deal with Arn Anderson, I think, at Slamboree. So that, that at least, that tie-in makes sense. It's not like the bit at the start didn't make sense, but it's like, the minute you can't make him Warrior Mark II, and not that it would have worked anyway, because I don't even think Renegade's got 10% of the ability that Warrior had. The minute you can't do that, what's the point in having him around? He's just there being awful. And I can't believe that I assumed Orndorff was probably going to win the title here. That probably makes sense. Now apparently DDP is going to win the title next month, and DDP is probably a better guy to hold the belt than Orndorff is at this stage, although Orndorff could be in that kind of veteran heel role as champion. He did that, not too long ago. But yeah, I don't understand it. The match was, it was just shite. I mean, it was just like, Renegade can do a couple of things quite impressively. The body slam was quite good. The splash he does in his squash matches is quite good, but dare I say, the splash is one of the easier moves to hit. You just leap off the top turnbuckle, stick your arms in the air and land correctly. It's not a massively complex move. It's not a massively dangerous move either if you're trained correctly. But other than that, he's got no redeeming features, and Wayne's right. Jimmy Hart, and I think Jimmy Hart's a horrible act anyway, but Jimmy Hart alongside the Renegade cannot reflect well on Hogan. In fact, Renegade, as he is, cannot reflect well on Hogan, given that, Renegade came in, and all he seems to be good at the moment is having really short matches. And that's the thing, it's not like they're even putting him with great wrestlers or anything like that. They are having him go in very, very short matches, which tells me they're in on the gag as well. And it's like, well, you're only cutting your nose to spite your face. You think this is funny, but I don't think they do. But yeah, the sooner this experiment ends, the better, because it's just terrible. We get backstage with Oakland and Vader. Vader says he's attempting history tonight and he has no fear. We now seem to be trying to kill time ahead of the top of the hour. We get a long video package previewing the 6-person tag match. It's Bunkhouse Buck, Dirty Dick Slater and Kannarot Parker versus Harlem Heat, Booker T and Stevie Ray, and Sister Sherry. If the Heat and Sherry win the match, the Heat will get a title shot against Dick and Buck at the next pay-per-view. Sherry wants Parker in the ring, but Parker in his shirt and trousers is quite happy stood on the apron. The Heats have to hold Sherry back. Ray starts unloading on Slater, who quickly retreats to his corner. Ray hits a scoop slam on Slater. Buck climbs to the top, Booker T kicks him, and then hits a lovely angled dropkick. Sherry then gets a slap in on Buck before raking his eye. Booker T drops an elbow, then does a big bit of breakdancing before getting to his feet. Sherry's getting irate on the apron, hits a nail Slater with a right hand. Booker T hits a nice jumping sidekick as we hit the advert break. And during one of the commercials, we see the company giving away a Harley Davidson. I'll be announcing the winner on the premiere of WCW Monday Nitro on September the 4th on TNT. Best I can tell, this is the first time they've announced it on television, the new show. So I think we can call that a bit of an anticlimax as an announcement goes. Back in the ring, Bunkhouse Buck hits a nice dropkick on Booker T. Finally, Parker gets tagged in, and that seems to liven up the crowd. The Heat hit a nice double suplex on Parker, tags in Sherry, who hits a crossbody from the top. The crowd are going nuts for this. Sherry then drops a leg on Parker's crotch, then goes for a splash from the top, and appears to knock herself out as Parker moves out of the way. Sherry eventually comes to, Parker picks her up, Sherry jumps into his arms, kisses him, Parker falls backwards to the ground, and the referee counts to 3 as Sherry is on top of him. After the match, Sherry drags Parker up the aisleway and starts kissing him again. Sherry chases after Parker to the backstage area. Wayne, what did you think?
It goes. I love Sherry. I've got to put it out there. She's she's just a mad woman. I love her to bits. She takes bumps like there's no tomorrow. She's just amazing in the ring when just how she can just take bumps the way she does with fully grown men. You know, it's they're about half the size of her in that sense, width and height, etc. And you know the moves that she's taking from these guys is nothing short on amazing. The match itself, going through the motions, I always thought that it was all about Parker, it was all about Sherry. Sherry on the apron just being an absolute crazed bitch was pretty good. And then as soon as Sherry and Parker got in there, the match lit up a bit. As you said, the crowd was hot for it. Kudos to Parker as well for taking the double suplex from Harlem Heat, and to go hand in hand with everything I've said about the weird finishes and WCW. Sherry unintentionally pins Parker by kissing him after the ridiculous storyline of getting a bump on his head, on her head, and now being in love with him. And then at the right end we had a bit of sexual assault. So what more do you want from a match?
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, they've never done this one before. Del,
did you watch the commercials in this match?
I only made note of the Nitro bit. I may have done, I don't remember.
There's a new Judge Dredd game coming out I think it's the Mega Drive, it's coming out for the Genesis. I swear to God, I was convinced it was Vince McMahon doing the voice over for it. I don't know if anybody else noticed that. But
there's that.
I was convinced it, whether it was or not, I don't know.
Did one of them do something, and did he go, what a manoeuvre? That we'll know.
I see that. He never said unbelievable, so it might not have been him.
Did he count 1, 2, 3, he got him, and then Judge Dredd didn't have him? Did that happen?
See, now you're making me doubt myself. I think you're onto some. I don't think it was him now that you say that. I need to steal another page out of Wayne Lythgoe's book. Sherry Martel is phenomenal. I was trying to think during this match, actually I think it was when the commercials were on, then Vince doing Judge Dredd distracted me. I was trying to think of any female performer in the history of wrestling that's better than Sherry Martel, and I couldn't think of anybody.
No.
Whether it's the look that she's got, the promos that she can do, that, as Wayne says, the bumps that she takes, and I mean, my mind always goes back to that Hogan Flair match for last year when she takes it was Flair and Sting when she took the bump to the outside and seemingly rattled her head off the guardrail. I think she's just phenomenal, and everybody that she's with just makes them better. I mean, Macho Man was beloved. He was there with Elizabeth, and when he went to the bad side, it was Sherry Martel that made him. She was there with the Macho King and made him hated at that point. She brought Shawn Michaels legitimacy. She actually made him into a star. Even the brief time that she had with Shane Douglas in ECW, she made him better. Now she's with Booker and Stevie Ray. I think Booker's got a pretty decent promo. Stevie Ray's got a really good look. I think he just looks like an absolute unit. And I just love Sherry Martel. And as Wayne said as well, Parker's just all in on his gimmick. I mean, it's a bit southern, a bit 80s, a bit Memphis even, but he's all in it, and you can't really decry him for that. But I say Sherry Martel just made this for me. Anything that she's in, I just think's absolute gold. The match itself, I thought was slower than a night in the cells, but I must admit.
Yeah. I mean, 3 for 3 on the Sherry stuff. She's great. She's excellent in this match, and as I say, I think it's testimony to both of them. That the crowd were dead throughout this, and then they got in the ring, and the crowd just started to come alive. And it's like, that's what you get when you've got character investment. It's one thing WCW are struggling with on the whole. A lot of it's self-inflicted, don't get me wrong, but they are lacking in that area. But no, the match was pretty dull up until they both got in the ring. And Sherry's just a really good worker. There's no real other way of putting it. The bit with her knocking herself out was a bit clunky. She kind of landed on her feet and then fell forward and just slid across the ring. And then the bit at the end, take or leave the storyline, but it did play into it quite nicely. Wayne, what do you think of the match itself before we got to the antics?
Well, as I said, I thought the match was just going through the motions. It was like Del says, it was just pretty slow. It was just waiting for Parker and Sherry to get in, and there wasn't anything to take note of really until they got in there. Just to change it a little bit slightly, I know you mentioned before about the Harley Davidson. I forgot to add it before, but if they're meant to be competing with WWF and trying to outdo them, did they not realise that they gave away a house 2 months ago?
Yeah, but I don't know that was a good thing for WWF. I don't know what that cost or what that made back. And equally, their show isn't called WCW Harley Davidson Monday Nights.
Oh, true.
So I don't know.
But you're going to meet Hulk, Wayne. You're going to meet the Hulkster.
Well, of course. And I suppose WCW is spending within the means as well.
Yes. Well, they have to be now. They found out Nitro's not going to make him any money. But yeah, I mean, they're giving away a Harley Davidson, I think, because the Harley Davidson gave them a bite to give away. I don't think this was a case of them stumping up a prize, just happened to have one to give away. And we go backstage, and Media Oakland is with Hulk Hogan. Hogan name drops the McMahons as people from his past his past. After the break, Media Oakland says that every pay-per-view you buy for Full Brawl, $1 will be donated to the MDA National Ambassador, Thomas Diaz. Del, what did MDA stand for? Muscular dystrophy, right, that was right.
There you go.
Thomas Diaz was out in a wheelchair, and this was them just basically taking advantage. Randy Savage comes out and tries to kind of steer Thomas through a segment, mentions the debut of Nitro. And then we enter the live Dungeon of Doom.
My son, the real white-fingered tiger, the immortal Hogan, tried earlier, took the bait, and is creeping deeper and deeper into the trap that you have set for him. He fell for the trap, Father, and tonight, in the Dungeon of Doom, the slaughter of the immortal Hulk Hogan will prevail. Taskmaster, the path you've laid is perfectly clear. Only a man that was ready for combat would follow it. After what happened with Kamala in the ring, brother, I held your whole army at bay. The Shark, the Zodiac, and Kamala, brother. Bring them all out. Let them feel the power of Hulkamania right now in the dungeon, brother. As they fall at my feet, you'll feel the power, and then your most powerful possession. Bring him to me. Bring the giant to me. I've fought giants before, and I can't wait to fight your most powerful warrior. Because etched in stone, only Hulkamania will live forever, Taskmaster. You don't understand. I will destroy Hulkamania. Because I am the son of a giant. That's cowards, run! You can run, but you can't hide from the one true immortal.
Hogan tells Taskmaster to bring every weapon he's got. The Giant gets Hogan from behind and drives him into the ground. We then get some dodgy camera work as the rest of the Dungeon of Doom fight Hogan. Vader is on hand and he clears them off. He squares off against the Giant. Jimmy Hart comes out and Sting, and they get Hogan out of there. Wayne.
Yeah, you gave me three options before about what it was, what the dungeon is. Is there a portal? Is it in the back of a truck? Or is it on Daytona Beach? I was thinking that it's either at Daytona Beach or it must have a portal. But thinking about it more, I think you're in the right sense with the truck. You know, like the mobile homes. Well, I think Kevin Sullivan just drives around in a mobile dungeon. And that's how he gets from destination to destination.
It's not Buddy's lorry, and that he's not there anymore. But I'll do something with it.
Yeah. Well, true. But the sheer fact that everyone was close by and was helping Hogan out really squashed it for me. I just didn't understand it one bit.
Yeah, Hogan walks in through what we'll call the official dungeon entrance, which is to the left of King Curse's throne, essentially. So you kind of feel like you're looking into like an enclosed dungeon. And then, the Giant follows through the official door. That's fine. He attacks Hogan. And then we get the other guys from the Dungeon of Doom, Zodiac Shark and Kamala, running from the side. I guess that's fine because they're part of the Dungeon of Doom, so they might have a secret bit or a bit off camera. That bit makes sense. And then Vader just comes in from behind the camera. and then Jimmy Hart and Sting come in from left of camera. And I'm thinking, how many portals are there? You know, I don't know. But yeah, it's weird in the sense that the rationale behind all this from Kevin Sullivan apparently is you've got to suspend your disbelief. But it's like, I suspend my disbelief and it still doesn't make sense. Like, I still can't, you have to suspend your disbelief to watch wrestling. You have to suspend your disbelief to believe storylines that make sense in a wrestling context. This just doesn't.
I mean, they're suspending your belief, but I mean, I think if you understand the concept of the suspension of your own conscious belief, you're incapable of understanding this. I think the only way that you can understand it is if you don't know what that means. And it's like, we talk about 90s cartoon wrestling. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than this. And then the fact, I mean, if you're so invested that you can watch these segments and you're so invested in Hulk Hogan and his battle against the Dungeon of Doom and overcoming the odds and winning triumphant and Hulkamania lives on, it's just, I can honestly think of no redeeming features in this. I mean, not to tread on old ground, but I mean, at the start of this full debacle, was Kevin Sullivan, before he became the Taskmaster, was he running through forests in his underpants to get here?
Yeah.
And Hogan arrives, doesn't know where the hell he is, but then Savage, Sting and Vader, they've seemingly just chanced upon a cosmic key or a treasure map and found their way there. Well, conveniently enough, live on TV.
He was at the other end of the forest, and tonight it wasn't. It was outside Daytona Beach Arena or wherever they were.
I mean, did Randy just take one of his old sequin jackets for the 80s and 90s and just kind of tie a fucking thread to Kevin Sullivan when he was running through the forest, and then they just followed it like they were in a Greek maze? It's I don't get this. And I mean, the kind of moving on as well, I mean, there was the full Giant thing in this as well, and it's, I mean, the beauty of WrestleMania 3 with Andre and Hogan that's been alluded to all the way through this, the beauty of that was it was organic. And it's like the bit on Piper's Pit, 8 years ago now, it was almost a throwaway spot, that full crucifix thing. It was just like an afterthought. It was just a happy chance that happened, and they got the camera to zoom in on it, and then that became a part of the story. And you'd Andre with this big 14, 15 year he'd went undefeated and he'd never been offered a title shot, and then he sided with the Bray, and he sided with Bobby Heenan, and then it was built into the big story. You'd Piper there being the master of ceremonies and the build up. I mean, it was just organic and it felt good and it felt real, and it's like, it was genuinely like, oh, who's going to win this? This is like fucking Titan meeting Zeus, and it's going to be amazing. But this is just, See, to be honest, it's actually worse than the Renegade for me. I mean, at least the Renegade at best is low budget. There's very little loss in that. I mean, they thought they were going to bring in Jim Hellwig. They thought they'd make a lot of licensing deals and merchandise sales. I mean, at the end of the day, they've just lost money that they could have made with the Renegade, but they've actually spent money on this shit. And it's just, I don't know, maybe I've been a bit harsh, and maybe it's just because I missed the debut of this debacle last month, but I cannot hide my apathy at this.
No, just to quickly fill in something Del referenced that I don't think I actually wrote down, was when the Giant kind of confronts Hogan, he does yank the crucifix off of Hogan just to fill that bit in. But yeah, I mean, the other thing, Wayne, that I took note of was that the bit after, because kind of Giant locks in kind of a nerve hold on Hogan's shoulder, which drives into the mat, or to the floor, or to the base of the lorry. It's not in a lorry, by the way. And then we get the rest of the Dungeon of Doom running, and we end up with this like really, really soft, floaty, cartoony beatdown of Hogan. You know, camera gets really up close, starts shaking around, and you get real up close of Zodiac not really laying in a kick, and Shark making a lot of noise and not really looking like he's hurting Vader. Well, it just looks awful.
Yeah, all of it does, yeah. So, I'll be honest with you, Bob, apart from just agreeing with you, I've not got much more to add on that. It just looks
Shall we move on?
Right.
If the dungeon is in a portal, there may be some conflicting gravity and or altitude, which seemingly led then to the soft appearing blows and the lack of action. There you
now
go.
that I can suspend my disbelief for.
I am all in this shit.
Well, equally, we're getting somewhere now. Equally, what if it turns out Paul White is actually only 5'9", but in the version of the Dungeon of Doom with the portal and things getting lost, he's actually 7'2"? What if we get to the debut of the Giant and he's like Paul Laurie from ECW?
Boom.
That's it. Yes, I'm investing now. I wasn't investing 2 minutes ago.
See, we've been investing so much time in this, thinking the idea itself came out of someone's brown hole. It's actually a black hole, and we have just sussed the scientific aspect of this entire angle.
Our fault as a viewer was not suspending our disbelief enough. We didn't look at the
Taskmaster was right.
There we go. We move on. We get a preview of War Games from Full Brawl. They haven't lined all this up yet, but they do flash very, very quickly through all 8 main event participants, including Vader, who will be on the face team, and including Manga, who will be on the Dungeon of Doom, even though he hasn't joined them yet. Now we move on to the main event. It's Ric Flair and Arn Anderson versus Vader in a 2-on-1 handicap match. A 1-on-1 in the ring, and then the other Flair or Anderson stood on the outside tagging in. Arn starts in the ring with Vader. Vader unloads on Anderson in the corner. Vader hits an atomic drop and closes on Anderson over the top. Back in the ring, Vader beats on Anderson some more until Anderson reverses an Irish whip and hits a very nice spine buster. With that, Flair finally offers to tag himself into the match while Anderson has the advantage. Flair stomps a couple of times and does his strut, but Vader pops up and hits a pair of body press slams. Vader whips Flair across the ring, who does his flip onto the apron. Vader meets him on his way down with a clothesline. Flair goes to grab a chair, but as the ref follows him, Anderson knocks down Vader. Anderson back in the match, hits an DDT, and Flair gets back in and sets for a figure 4. Vader escapes, Flair climbs to the top, and Vader throws him off. Vader hits a splash, and Anderson breaks up the count. Vader then hits a splash from the top. Anderson once again is on hand to break up the pin. Vader gets up, sends them both to the mat. Flair is spark out. Vader hits a gut wrench powerbomb and wins the match. Del.
Arn Anderson's one of my favourite wrestlers, and he's still got it. We've seen the promo mid-show with Gene and Flair was there as well. Thought it was brilliant. I thought the play acting with these two through it was quite good. We know AA can hold that during a match, as we've seen when he teamed with Dustin Rhodes last year and then turned on him right at the death with a DDT. I just think he's amazing. Flair I still think's good. Vader is the super heavyweight in the world. At the minute, whether it's America, whether it's Japan, the only thing I worry about this face turn is that the only real contemporary that Vader's got is Bam Bam, and Bam Bam's face run is just dying a death for me. But I mean, it was another kind of slow match, but again, just having equal name power just made this look a lot better, I think, for me. I've already moaned about Hawk being involved in a match, and then when you've got Sting, you've got Alex right there, but you've had to put up with Paige. This was Vader, top heavyweight, one of the best heels in recent memory. Alright, he's a face now, but looking past the flaws in that, I like him. Flair and Anderson, I just think are brilliant, whether it's together side by side, or kind of back to back, or front to back, however they're lining up, if it's as a team or if it's against each other. I think they're brilliant, but it was just a really disappointing show, but this was one of the few highlights for me.
No, you can't beat a heel to face turn where the heel essentially does nothing different and just is a face. And that's what Vader did. I mean,
well, to be fair, I did quite like it at the start with the full kind of, it was almost like a throwback to Big Van Vader when he's out with the Mastodon headdress, he's out with the kind of pyro thing. I did quite like that. That was slightly different for him, to be fair.
Well, he's had the headdress for, he had that at Bash of the Beach.
I suppose.
But equally, like when he won the match and he just turned around and did his usual pose to the crowd and they popped rather than booed. I did like that. I really enjoyed this match. It was classic. It was just like classic three, veterans in the ring together. And in the sense that there's a great story where Anderson works really, really hard to get on top. Flair waits until Anderson's really on top, tags himself into the match, and then Flair loses all that advantage quickly. I love that storytelling. Why? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'd totally agree. I thought this was one of the few shining lights about the whole show. To share, I've used this word or this statement a few times tonight, but to share the same sentiment as Del, and just really carries on impressing me. Whether it's his promos or whether he's in the ring again, he didn't let me down again. Just love the momentum he was building up, and then on the other side, just absolutely love Flair for just playing the chicken shit heel that he does well, taunting at Vader and then hiding, and then and like you said, only coming in when he when Arn's got everything going on their side. I think there was one point when Arn did the spine buster and Flair did a blind tag or something, and then come in. Unless I missed that one. And then on Vader's side of things, he was trying to sell a little bit when he was getting beat down, and he was doing it quite well. But my gripe about it more than anything was when he was obviously doing work on his leg, and then Flair had him in the figure four, and then all of a sudden his leg was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, and I know that he's obviously meant to be this big babyface monster, but just little bits like that, I just still think that they need ironing out if you want me to believe into him the way he is. But all in all, I thought the match was, as I said, it was one of a few shining lights, and I actually enjoyed it.
Wayne, what do you think of Vader's prospect as a babyface? Del quite rightly referenced Bam Bam Bigelow, and where that went. Given what happened in the Dungeon of Doom segment, I guess I'm stating the obvious and saying what they're probably setting up Vader for is a guy that the Giant can beat out of the gate, which I guess makes a lot of sense. But once they do that, Wayne, is there much for Vader as a face on this roster?
No, we covered it off last month, didn't we? When he turned face after the Bash of the Beach finished, and or at least I said it last month. If you're turning him face, and what have you got for him? You've, like you said, you've got the Giant there, but after that, there is no one. He's going to be behind Hogan. He's going to be behind Savage, and can contradict to what we've been saying all night. He'll probably be behind Sting as well, and I think the turn was, I think it was the wrong way to go about things. But if the turn was due for the sheer fact that he's just going to be there for the Giant, then I think it was the wrong call.
After the match, Flair shouts some abuse at Anderson, who doesn't take it well. The pair stare down. Flair slides out of the ring. We cut to the R-Way, and Hogan, Sting, Savage, and Hart come out. Now, keep this in mind for what you're about to hear in the TV review, because I hope I explain it properly, but I will cover it here. Essentially, they air a segment on Saturday night, 6 days following this, that implies that Hogan is backstage being interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund during this main event match. And then things get a bit weird. So in the Clash version, Hogan, Sting, Savage and Hart come out. Hogan says, I want to know what state of mind Vader is in and that he's declaring war on the Dungeon of Doom. What you're going to hear in a bit, what you'll hear once we've done our score ratings, is you'll hear a promo with Gene and Hogan that is happening apparently while the match is going on in Vader's dressing room. And during that segment, uncut, Vader walks into Hogan's dressing room and they have the promo that you're all about to hear. And then Hogan comes out and says, I want to know what state of mind Vader's in. So they kind of got that a bit out of order. But anyway, we'll kind of leave that to what you're about to hear in a minute. Del, your overall thoughts on the Clash of Champions and a score rating out of 10?
Overall, disappointing to me. As I say, I think there was definitely some shining lights in there. I like Alex Wright, I like Sting. We never really got to see them kind of show what they can do best. There was a lot of filler from a performance aspect. I mean, Hawk can't sell. Orndorff, as good a heel as he is, he's past it. Page, I don't see anything in. But for what you lose in that, you gain with Sherry, you gain with Flair and Anderson. It was on TV. It's not going to be a WrestleMania or a Starrcade, but overall, I think even for a TV show, I think the best I can give this is about a 4 out of 10.
Why?
Yes, same from me. If it wasn't on free TV, I think the rating I'll give it would have been a lot lower. Like Del says, obvious shining lights in Alex Wright put on a good match. The interaction with Sherry and Parker, I really bought into. And then even the main event as well. I took some enjoyment out of there. But still, it was just one of those events that was, bit forgettable in some sense as well. And, Hawk on there and Renegade, and then the whole thing with Hogan is just putting a dampener things on for me anyway. So, overall, I'll give it a 5.
Yeah, I'm with you on 5 out of 10. This show is almost entirely missable. Main event's not bad, but it's nothing to write home about. Other than that, nothing is, I suppose the Dungeon of Doom, again, if you're a glutton for punishment, I guess, look at that. Right DDP ain't bad. It's not bad enough to be must watch. And it's nowhere near good enough and there's nothing good enough on this show that you have to go back and see. But it's just a middling show. It's not a particularly long show to watch. If you've got a couple of hours to kill and you listen to a review, it's like, well, might as well watch it. I wouldn't necessarily deter you from it, but equally this is an entirely skippable show, which, I feel like WCW should be capable of more than this, and they certainly are. But I think, as Wayne alluded to earlier, just their overall direction just isn't geared really for being able to do a good job of this. Yes, we will now transition into that Hogan and Vader promo.
Hulk Hogan, why in the world would you subject me to coming back to Vader's dressing room? You know I get nervous around the man. You do too.
Oh, Mean Gene, it's a little nerve-wracking hanging out in Vader's den, brother. He's taking care of business right there, brother. But I just want to know where the brother's coming from, man. Dungeon of Doom, yeah, he put the fires out. He saved my hide, but then he got up in my face, brother. I got the same problems Vader does, brother. The Dungeon of Doom, Kevin Sullivan trying to destroy Hulkamania, brother. You know what's right around the corner. Could be feast or famine for Hulk Hogan, brother.
I'm assuming you're talking about Fall Brawl of the War Games in 2 cages and 2 rings.
Yeah, I got a little plan for Fall Brawl. He must have finished this guy off, brother. I can hear him coming back. The bell must have rung. Hang tough, brother. We're in Vader's room. Hang tough.
He scares the devil out of me. I don't know if I want to even be around here. Just a second. 452 pounds.
What are you doing in my locker room, Hogan? I want to know where you're coming from, Vader. What were you doing in my face last week, brother?
I took care of business, brother, because you have something around your waist, brother, and it's gold. And someday we're going to hook up one more time to answer that question.
Well, I tell you something, Vader. Seems like we both got a couple of the same problems. You know, a lot of people in your face, a lot of people are in my face. War games around the corner. Why don't you team up with me and my Hulkamaniacs? And then, brother, if you play it straight, fight with me just for one night. I'll give you whatever you want down the road. I'll put that WCW title up down the road. Okay. We'll get it on again, Vader.
Let me hear these. You give me your word.
I give you my word.
Listen, brother. You know what? A lot of people have done a lot of things to me. But never in this business have people lied to me like the people in the June. And yes, you are Hulk Hogan. You are the power behind Hulkamania. And for that, I give you respect, brother. I got your back. You want to go to war?
Yeah, I give you my word, not give me your word.
I give you my word on that night and that day, brother. We are side by side, and we will go to war.
Get ready, Vader.
I'm going to get in the shower.
All right, Hulk Hogan.
Get ready, Vader. You're in for the war of your life. I'm just glad you're on my side. Mean Gene.
Can you trust him?
Don't worry about trusting him, brother. He's in check with a Macho and Sting and Hulk Hogan. The maniacs are watching. All I gotta say, brother, like the shot that was heard around the world, you tell that no-good raggedy Nick Bockwinkel my team is ready for war games. Sting, Macho, Hogan, and Vader time. What you gonna do, Shark, Kamala, and Zodiac Man? Whoever else he pulls out the word work. Andre said it don't matter. The whole Dungeon of Doom. What you gonna do, Sullivan? When Hogan's team of maniacs challenges you, what you gonna do? If you got any guts, meet us head on head at War Games. You're gonna be mine.
On the 12th of August edition of WCW Saturday Night After the Clash, we get a debut vignette of Cobra, who was apparently left in the jungle by Sergeant Craig Pittman. Morse code and helicopter sound effects play over a mysterious clip. Pittman, later asked about the name Cobra by Mean Gene Okerlund, went very silent. A bizarre segment aired next, more in the sense that the timeline didn't line up with how things happened at the Clash. We cut back to a clip filmed during the match between Vader, Arn Anderson and Ric Flair. Hogan's backstage with Mean Gene Okerlund in Vader's locker room. He says he wants Vader on his team at Full Brawl. Vader then walks in at the end of his match, apparently having just finished. Hogan says he'll give Vader a title shot if he agrees to team with him at the pay-per-view. Vader accepts. All well and good. When you watch back what happens at the Clash, Hogan walks out onto the ramp and demands to know where Vader is at. Harlem Heat defeat the Nasty Boys after Kannarot Parker threw a drink in Jerry Sagg's eyes while he was on the turnbuckle. Arn Anderson said in the clip that he and Flair have agreed to disagree, but there were no big issues following the Clash of the Champions. He and Flair defeated Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Marcus Alexander Bagwell in the main event. On August 19th, Meng was introduced as the newest member of the Dungeon of Doom, wearing some very strange headgear. Taskmaster said that the balance of power had shifted. We got a clip later in the show of Hogan, Vader, Savage and Sting in army gear preparing for Full Brawl. They looked in good spirits in camo and face paint. In the main event, Ric Flair pinned Alex Wright while Wright was in the figure 4 leg lock. Flair and Anderson had a confrontation after the match. Anderson told Flair he doesn't need to cheat to win. Flair put his arms on the ropes to get leverage during the pin. We finish August with the 26th edition of WCW Saturday Night. Cobra debuts winning a squash. He says that only he and Pittman know what the Morse code in the vignettes mean. We're going to get Brian Pillman versus Johnny B. Bad at Full Brawl. The winner will face Sting for the US title. They had a tense confrontation and handshake with Mean Gene. Arn Anderson, in a sit-down interview, said him against Flair at Full Brawl will be the fight of the decade. During a Harlem Heat squash match, Sister Sherry was out doing her makeup in a mirror. She was wearing a ring round her neck that belongs to Colonel Parker. During the main event of Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Six Slater versus Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Alex Wright, the match ended when Colonel Parker climbed into the ring in an attempt to run away from Sister Sherry. The show went off the air with Parker fleeing into the stands, closely followed by Sherry.
WCW Heavyweight Champion of the World, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Ric Flair, I cannot believe the news recently. I cannot believe my ears. I cannot believe what I heard. The fact that you and your longtime friend, former Four Horsemen member, Arn Anderson, apparently egos or something getting in the way of your friendship, but you're going to be meeting at Fall Brawl, the War Games on September the 17th. What's happening?
You know, Gino, you've been so close to me in my career. We remember the long ride from my home to the Independence Arena in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I had to wrestle the monster Vader. The whole world said, either Flair's in or Flair's out. One or the other. That was supposed to be the biggest night of my wrestling life. Up until Fall Brawl, it was. Now what's happened, Jimmy? Double A. I put my hand out. My blood, my kin, my best friend pulled his hand back. Why did that happen, Jimmy?
You know, many fans would say this is the dream match of a lifetime, but I never thought it would become a reality.
Oh, it is the dream match, but it's the match that was never supposed to happen. It was the two best friends in the greatest sport, the sport of kings. We did it all. We are family. We are best friends. We have dominated. We took the world over. We became the Four Horsemen. They all came and went. Luger, Wyndham, Blanchard. We stayed. We hung together. We dominated the 90s. And here we are today on the verge of the biggest pay-per-view in the history of wrestling. Do you know why it is? Because it's Double A versus the Nature Boy. Think about it, Doc. You've been out with me. I used to walk into any bar, anywhere I wanted in the world, and if I fancied the scent of a beautiful woman, I snatched her. And I never took a step backwards. You know why? Because if the guy she was with didn't like it, Double A pounded him. And then he sat down next to me, and I bought him a beer. We rode as high as you can ride. We were family. It was real. We did it all, brother. You can say it to your kids 20 years from now. I can say it to mine now. We've done it all. We rode limousines. We flew in jets. We kissed all the girls that made them cry, and we beat any wrestling combination, one-on-one, tag team, 4-on-4, alive in this sport. Now at Fall Brawl, for some reason, I feel, Gene, that familiarity with someone has bred a little contempt. And I actually think for the first time in his illustrious career, Double A is saying to himself, do I cross that line? Do I find out if I'm the equal of the Nature Boy, or do I stay back? I don't think it happens. Double A, I think you know what you are. That's why you're in the ring with me at Fall Brawl. What I got to do to you, pal, is prove why I've been where I've been for a lifetime. Woo!
I don't even know if I want to see this one. I thank you. One of a kind.
And we will discuss, I think, probably the big talking point coming out of the TV in the final few weeks of August. Del, which is the impending, well, the breakup really of Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Yeah. We got a fantastic Ric Flair promo, which you will have heard. I think, yeah, you'll hear the Anderson promo at the end of this bit, and the Flair promo you will have heard. And we got that as well. What do you think about what they're doing with Anderson and Flair? I mean, I don't know. This feels like a good match. I love the promos we've got out of them so far, but I kind of don't know what their exit strategy is once they've done the match.
I think that's the long-term concern. I mean, short-term, I think it'll be good TV. You'll get a couple of good pay-per-view matches out of this, I would think, whether it lasts as long as Starrcade, or if maybe they're hoping to try and maybe get the payoff by Starrcade, don't really know. As long as this Dungeon of Doom debacle's going on, I think anything that's kind of get any semblance of a chance of being successful and good to watch, I think is brilliant. But for the two guys involved, I mean, it's you say that the Flair promo was decent. We're going to hear how good Arn is still in the mic as well. Arn Anderson is the kind of enforcer. Seeing him as a baby face is a bit of a change when he seems to be like he's going to be the good guy in this. But Ric Flair, I think, even in the Clash in the Pro and everything that's probably still to come in this programme as well, Ric Flair has seemingly just been just divulging himself into the Bobby Heenan handbook, and he's doing it to perfection. He can do, I think it was Wayne that said earlier on, that chicken shit heel. He can run about, he can kind of lose the goodness that he's getting for Arn when they're fighting face to face. Flair then blames Arn for losing the match, and then he's going to get his comeuppance. Where that goes long term, I don't really know, but as a journey, it's something I'm looking forward to. It's two old pros, as you said earlier on yourself, Bob. The two of them can go. They're probably past their peak, but they're past their peak to an extent that they can still go, unlike some one who perhaps may or may not be the world heavyweight champion at this point of view. But the two of them can still go. They're going to have good matches, they're going to have good promos, they're going to have good chemistry. That's all you really need for a good programme, innit?
Wayne?
Yeah, like Del says, there's one thing you can guarantee: you're going to get a great feud out of these two. But the thing I'm worried about more than anything is the long-term vision. The other thing about it as well is we've seen, although it's not pay-per-views, but we've seen two monthly WCW events where Flair has turned one of his allies into a face, and if he carries on the way that he does, then it's just going to be Flair against the whole WCW. But it's the long term aspect that worries me more than anything. It's great that you've got these two that are not going to be involved in anything in particular that has got the Dungeon of Doom or Hogan involved, so they're going on their own accord. But it's short term goals. I'm all for it. But after that, I'm not buying into it. Nor am I buying into Arn Anderson being a babyface, which gets me to ask you, Bob. I thought he was, but you'll probably know the answer to this. But is Arn Anderson not in the stud stable anymore?
No. Was he last in the stud stable? Yes, he was, but no, he hasn't been for months. Right. Is the answer to that? I can't even. I remember when. When they, I can't recall what the exit strategy was. That they may have just drifted apart. But no, his answer is short. He's not.
Right. So I mean, well, that was the other concern as well. Is if he was still a part of that stable and now he's a face, is how does that work? But as I said, as you just pointed out as well, I've not seen him in there for months now, but it didn't seem to be any big blow off or exit in there. So that just got me to believe that he was still in there. But
I guess the same is true with Manga, really, in the sense that I think if they want to take someone off Parker, but they don't want to turn them face, then they just don't explain it. Manga is now part of the Dungeon of Doom, and I just don't think Parker's managing you anymore. Is the short answer?
Yeah. Well, true. Yeah.
Parker's got his own issues at the moment. Let's be clear about that.
Well, that's it. Yeah, he's knackered. He is, because he's still running from Sherry, isn't he? So Arn Anderson and Manga are the least of his worries at the moment. But obviously, just to go back onto this point, it's just the long term aspect to it that I'm worried about, and the sheer fact that we've kind of turned Arn Anderson face. I think if we was looking at keeping these two separate to the Dungeon of Doom and Hogan, I wouldn't see anything wrong in keeping them together and having them as heels, because they would probably be the biggest heels of WCW, but breaking them up just brings them down a level. And that's not a knock on Flair or Anderson. I just think they're a lot stronger together.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of wider concern that they seem to be shifting a lot of guys to the babyface side, which kind of leads you to think that they're going to make the Dungeon of Doom bigger and more significant. I I don't know why else you do it. I don't know why you'd move Vader across. And, you know, at least with Arn, you feel like he could finish a feud with Flair and then maybe kind of drop down a level or two and start working with some of the younger guys. But even then, I kind of feel like, well, you know, we'll segue into a minute into their acquisitions. You kind of feel like, well, if they were going to have Anderson work with Benoit and with Malenko, I presume those guys come in as baby faces. They'll certainly, you know, if they're going to wrestle a style that's even 60% of what they wrestle at ECW, it's going to be very difficult to have those guys play heels, unless they're really clever about it. I suppose they could just align one of them with a heel manager. That's not out of the question. But yeah, it's more, this feels like a very short-term move, much in the same way Vader feels like a very short-term move. It's like, okay, we get to the end of this, then what? And I don't have a good answer to that.
I've known Ric Flair my entire life. Ric Flair's as successful as any man in any sport. Still, there's a hole in his life. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if Flair is using me because I've always been there for him. I tell you what, though, it's deteriorated to the point I can't talk to him. I can't talk to my family. I can't talk to his family. I can't make head nor tails of it one way or the other. I've always been a team player, but when it served my needs, it served everyone's needs. When I achieved what I wanted to get out of the particular situation, it benefited everybody. I am my own man. I've always been my own man. I've done exactly what I wanted to do. It just so happened that usually what I wanted was for the good of all, and everyone can see that. The only thing that has caused any rift between Ric Flair and myself has been the fact that he's looked past me, he's looked at me, he's looked through me for an answer that doesn't exist in me. He looked to me for my help, and I decided then Ric Flair would become himself and himself of old, or he'd lose that match. I wasn't going to help him, period.
Tony, we got a serious problem here.
He would like me to give you a wrestling lesson.
He implied to me he could give me a wrestling lesson. I didn't like it, and I won't put up with it.
I don't think you're man enough to give me any kind of lesson.
I expect the match of my life. I expect somebody that's going to get hurt bad. I think I'll come out of it a better man, a better wrestler, or on a gurney. But I can tell you this, and I look right at you when I say this, Ric Flair. I'm going to come out of that match in Asheville with A, your respect, or your backside in my hip pocket. Because I'm Arn Anderson. You wouldn't have had me all these years as your confidant, partner, best friend, and certainly you wouldn't have had me a horseman. It's going to be the fight of a decade. Win, lose, or draw. I'm coming out of that with something that I can hold my head up about. Rest assured.
And as I alluded to before the clip, we will move on to our final discussion topic of the show. Del, WCW, it looked early in the month like they might have some issues, and we did mention last month about their ideas of acquiring talent, and it didn't go anywhere, or it didn't feel like they were hitting the rocks on that. But now it looks like Benoit, Malenko, Guerrero and Sabu, they are Too Cold Scorpio's a name that's been mentioned, but I don't know if that's confirmed yet. The other four all do look set to come in at some point in the next couple of months. I've got mixed feelings. I mean, they're guys that, you know, we spoke about, you know, Benoit a couple of months ago as a WWF prospect, and the thought process was, well, Benoit goes in, and if they're smart enough, he goes in as their third best wrestler. I kind of feel like these guys coming to WCW, and with the exception of Ric Flair, they come in as their four best workers, which is exciting. I just don't know whether they're smart enough to get that out of them.
I think it's kind of similar to a few other topics that we've spoke about this month in the show, Bob, whether it's the Vader face turn, whether it's the split of Anderson and Flair and their feud. If it comes down to a question of trust in the talent, then it's a resounding yes, whether it's for Flair, Anderson, Vader, or if it's for Benoit, Malenko or Guerrero. Do you trust the talent? Yes. Do you trust WCW to invest wisely in them? That's a different question. For me, bringing them in, I think that the easiest way to do it is align the three of them together. They come in as a unit and they start working through WCW, but then if they're a unit, then you would probably imagine that it would be as a bad guy coming in and saying, no, we don't believe in what you're doing, we're here as wrestlers, we're here to save this sport. And
if they came in as a trio, took out Renegade, they'd be the biggest baby faces in the company.
Exactly. I mean, it's like that. I don't know how
else
you would...
I suppose the Sabu did come in at the right
time. I
time.
suppose, yes, throw in Sabu as the kind of maniac of the stable, as you often see, but I mean, the trouble with that is, though, I don't trust WCW to do that, and even if they did, you've already got the Dungeon of Doom that's got so much investment in it for a WCW point of view. They're not going to let young guys do that, especially young guys that could outperform, out anything, the guys that's in the main event. I mean, on the other side, if you kind of bring them in as these singles guys, I mean, we've spoke about it for months about this card that WCW puts out on a monthly basis, and it's like, well, you've got Alex right there, a young babyface, throw him in against a Guerrero or a Benoit or a Malenko or even a Sabu, and it's like, that's a good match. Then you've got Pillman, you've got Regal, you've got Austin seems to be up in the air at the minute with this injury that he's got, but you've got young guys in there, but WCW don't have a record of doing that. I mean, Sting is not in the same kind of age bracket as these guys we're talking about coming in. I mean, Sabu maybe aside, but your young Guerreros and Benoits and Malenkos, if they can't manage Sting into a reputable position in a card, what chance have you got with three pretty much unknowns coming in? I mean, they're not nationally known. I mean, regionally, depending on where you're coming from. If you're watching in El Paso or if you're watching in Philadelphia, you're going to know these guys, but to a national audience, especially in centre stage, they're not going to know who these guys are. I mean, they might get into matches and they might kind of just like seeing a fresh face about the place, but WCW aren't going to book these guys in any reputable position, as far as I'm concerned, because I just don't trust them as a company to do it, because it's all about Hogan, it's all about the Dungeon of Doom, to a lesser extent it's about Vader and Flair and Anderson and these kind of guys, but it's like, I mean, last year with the headline at Starrcade that featured, what was it called at the point? Was it the Butcher or the Baker?
Yeah, he was Butcher at that time, yeah.
I mean, that's where they see their money, which, to be fair, I mean, Hogan is one hell of an investment, so I mean, you would be protecting that as much as you can, but I think it, as I say, just comes down to trust. Do I trust Vader to be a good babyface? Yeah. Do I trust WCW to book him as one? No. Do I trust these guys to come in and work their backsides off, as we've seen in countless months in ECW? Sorry, this year has been all about the young blood, where it's these guys putting on matches where it's like they come into a region and like people, maybe kind of Philly crowds would know them or kind of read about them in the Torch or the Observer, but actually seeing them week by week, and it's amazing work. I mean, how many matches have at least one and or two or three of these guys been in match of the year? And Sabu is unlike anything else that you really see in the country or even farther afield. I mean, apart from maybe like a Cactus Jack, he's pretty unique as his moves go, Sabu. And I mean, I think any one of these can just slot right into a US or a TV title spot, but I just don't trust WCW, basically, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of saving grace, and it may not be, but the one thing we know about Eric Bischoff is that Eric Bischoff does not watch ECW. We found out that story, I think, in December, where Bischoff first watched Sabu in Japan.
Sabu in Japan. Wow,
he's excellent. Yeah. And we were like, well, yeah, we've known this for months, and that was the kind of giveaway that Bischoff just didn't watch ECW. And I imagine I cannot imagine that situation's changed. But there is a thought process now that says that with Kevin Sullivan as sort of head booker, Kevin Sullivan knows firsthand how good Sabu is. I don't think Kevin Sullivan's been back in ECW since the other three got there. I can guarantee that with Guerrero. But his wife, Nancy Sullivan, aka Woman, the manager of Sandman, the current ECW champion, is in the promotion as an active member. He will know how good these four are. In fact, dare I say, I think anyone with any smarts will know how good these four are. You don't need to look at it; you just need to look at their record or speak to guys that know them. But the question is just whether, because I remember Del. Oh, sorry, I'll come to you in a minute. But I remember Del. We were looking at this when we were speaking about Benoit in WWF, and the first thought was, well, he'd go in, he'd have great matches with him, and him.
Yeah.
And the concern is that knowing WCW's hierarchy, I'm not thinking, great, we're going to get Eddie Guerrero and Ric Flair, because I know we're not going to get Eddie Guerrero and Ric Flair.
Pretty much.
And that's the real shame, in the sense that you kind of feel like if they, if you want to watch a way that you could build Chris Benoit as a viable threat, watch how Paul Heyman did it late 94, probably September, October, after Benoit came into ECW. Didn't really have any characters to speak of, didn't ever do any talking, this was before they really developed the Crippler thing. And Heyman was getting him ready for Sabu. And Heyman just basically talked him up and just said, look, Sabu doesn't fear anyone, but he does fear Chris Benoit. And, it might be his last match, but he's going to put it all on the line, all that. I hope we put that promo in. And it's like, that's all you've got to do. Benoit's, strength, in short, is his in-ring performance. But I just, I don't think, Christ, can you imagine Sabu and Hulk Hogan? I can't. And I don't have to, because I know it's not going to happen. But Del, the real shame here is that they've identified great talent, but you almost can guarantee they're going to misuse them.
Pretty much. And I mean, I think the ideal scenario for me would be Bobby Heenan comes off the desk, fed up with this Hogan stuff, fed up with this, fed up with that. I've got some new blood in and we've got a new Heenan family. But as you say, it's not going to happen. And it's like, where do we realistically see these guys in a year's time? They sign tomorrow with WCW.
They're on 3-month contracts, so
Yeah. So I mean, what's to say we're going to get 2-3 months in? Thanks for your endeavours, but we're not quite looking for your style at the minute. And then the next thing you know, we've got Malenko and Guerrero just killing it in New Japan, or we've got Benoit going over the All Japan or down to AAA again. And I mean, that's the last we see them. It's just, we've already had this situation, even just as recently in the last couple of months with the Wonder Punk, and it's like Flair's hot on this guy, brilliant match with Pillman, month down the line he's not got any entrance music and he's going up against kind of far less impressive kind of people. I mean, this month we're seeing him against Page that's 40 odd at this point. I mean, he looks about 50 odd, but I think he's in his 40s, and it's like they can't handle the guys like Alex Wright, that's really like a poster boy for a company. He's a good looking kid, kind of pretty straight edge. You're going to be seeing like Chris Benoit coming in here, who has got a face like a mugshot. And it's like, if they can't invest in a white meat baby face like Alex Wright, then what chance have you got of coming in and no talking like Dean Malenko, or coming in looking like Benoit, or coming in like the kind of cheeky chappy Eddie Guerrero? And it's just, I don't know where we see them. I'm so happy to be hopefully seeing them in a national stage. You're going to be getting, as we said in the news, WCW is talking up monthly pay-per-views, the same lines as the Fed. We've got this Monday Nitro that's going to be starting next month, week-to-week live TV, month-to-month live pay-per-views. There's spots on a card for these guys, and maybe not to the same extent as Benoit and his WWF tryout, where we're pinning him up against Shawn and Brett and Owen and Razor, but you've still got a Regal, you've still got a Pillman, you've still got a Wright, maybe further up the card you've got a Flair, you've got an Anderson. They can put on brilliant matches, but it's just, are WCW going to see what me and you see, or are WCW still just going to have 1.5 eyes on the Dungeon of Doom and Hulk Hogan, and then it's just, oh, they're that new guy, and I put him on first, put him in a dark match. Only time will tell.
Wayne?
Yeah, we're with me on this one, and don't worry about where it's going. But I think me and Del have shared that many of the same views tonight, that if I had a look at what he was wearing, it'd probably be the same as what I'm wearing.
I just stole your notes, mate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I thought so. No, I mean, same again. I'm excited about these guys coming in, but at the same time, I'm very pessimistic about it. As if built right, then I said at the top of the show just before we got into the Clash review that it was dire because there's a real need of a shot in the arm, a new direction, fresh blood, fresh look on things, and if built right, then these guys could do exactly what's needed for them. My big concern though is that it is a big if built right. All you need to do is just look at Alex Wright, Brian Pillman, Steve Austin. There's probably many more names that I've not mentioned.
Dustin
there as well.
Rhodes, yeah.
None of those names in ring. Maybe Pillman. But really, none of those in-ring guys are as good as these four, though.
Yeah, all right. I'll be swayed on that view. But
from what I've seen, I've only seen 5 Eddie Guerrero matches, but they've all been phenomenal.
I think my argument is not the in-ring capabilities of these guys. I think it's more of a fact that it's fresh blood coming in and a new direction for WCW. They could have done that with Alex Wright. They was doing that with Alex Wright before the booking got taken away from Flair. They could have done that with Brian Pillman and Steve Austin, and then they just put them together and they were making something of it themselves, and then they broke them up. And it just seems like guys get so far, and then it gets it's like the carpet gets pulled from underneath them. But with Nitro coming in now, it needs to be different. As I said before, you need fresh talent. You need a bigger pool of guys to make the show work. And bringing these guys in will really help with that. But as Del said, and you probably shared the thoughts as well, Bob, is that these guys will get so far, and that'll be it. One of the things that you that you mentioned before is about Sabu, and looking at it, rather than putting them together, I could probably see Sabu join the Dungeon of Doom. Is a bit different, and that's
Wayne.
I think just at a character aspect, I don't want to ruin the guy, and I know he's got obvious talents that far exceed what's in that. But I could probably see him in there as I could see them put. I could see the booking team put him in there. Is because of his...
For what it's worth, my understanding is that Sabu is in on a different kind of deal to the other three. I think he's coming in to do a few
He's not
shows.
arriving via portal, is he? Because that's going to be a bad sign.
Well, I mean, equally, I guess if the portal's making the Giant look taller, it might make Sabu look even smaller. But yeah, no, my understanding is that Sabu's in on he's in to do a couple of Nitros and a pay-per-view, and I think that's it for now. So I think we can, breathe a sigh of relief in the short term that I don't get the sense he's going to be around long enough where I want to put him in the Dungeon of Doom. But I guess we'll see. Del, a quick thing just to kind of, before we wrap up is, and Wayne did kind of allude to it, is just, in ECW, and I think Benoit's probably the best example of this, but, they are all to a point. Benoit came in and, as a great worker that couldn't really talk, but there was the desire by Paul Heyman to hide Benoit's weaknesses and to work on his promo ability, amongst other things. Do you get the feeling that if they're working with the wrong guys, if Benoit gets put in a situation where he's working with an agent that says Benoit, if we're on Saturday night, Benoit squash, Benoit promo, do you get the feeling that they might hear Benoit talk and go, well, this guy's not very good? And the wider question being, and one thing brought up about Sabu was, how much control Sabu generally likes over his character. How forgiving do you think WCW are going to be, in the sense that, do you think they're going to look at their weaknesses and rather, like an ECW, perhaps go, okay, Malenko can't talk, let's give him a gimmick where he's silent. Benoit can't talk, but let's give him a gimmick where we'll give him certain very small, promos, and we'll build him up another way. Do you think WCW are going to be clever enough to do that, or are they just going to kind of go, well, you know what, we let other guys sink and swim, I'm going to let you do that? Because I don't know that Sabu's character can work outside of the ECW audience unless you explain it and give it enough time.
I think the easiest way I can sum that up is, I think it's more likely that they're just going to announce coming to the ring weighing 236 pounds, the mime artist, Dean Malenko, and he's going to be out with face paint and white gloves. That's Zodiac. Well, true, that's an Ed Leslie gimmick name, but I just can't get away from I think it's the Dungeon of Doom that's just clouding me. I mean, you just get these images now, the Saboteur, and that's Sabu with a big Arabian sword, and just, I don't know. I just don't trust WCW to give them that almost comfort that you would get in an ECW, for it is regionalised, it is a territory, it's not on national TV, you can kind of get under the radar, and you've got that almost like a man-to-man head count there, where you've got Paulie, who, just going with how he looks on TV every week, I don't think the man sleeps. I think he just works round the clock. His head is constantly buzzing with ECW, and I think he's got so many ideas. We've seen it back in the day with the Dangerous Alliance, when he kind of carved that into his own thing. He wanted to bring in his own guys, and he kind of gets stifled in WCW. When he's went to Philly, he can go backstage and he can see Benoit kind of slumped over after an hour-long match, and you just know Paulie would give him another hour, just talking to him about everything that he'd done brilliant and how he sees this vision. And I mean, it's almost like an ECW is kind of like a little restaurant chain where you're kind of training up the young guy to kind of do all this cooking and use all these skills and passing down family recipes, but the next thing you know, they're turning into a Michelin star chef. But then coming to WCW, it's kind of like working for McDonald's, and it's like, nah, you never cook the fries right, you're fired. And it's like, that's what my worry is for these guys coming in, where they're not going to get that TLC, that attention that they would get from a Paul Heyman, to a lesser extent, a Todd Gordon or an Eddie Gilbert when he was there. You're not going to get that this is for the young guys. I mean, WCW, as we've seen for the last year now, how many honky tonks have we seen? How many butchers have we seen? How many kind of earthquakes, avalanche, or sharks have we seen? And it's always like, it's almost like this is for the boys. You guys just play about in the playground, and we'll see you at 3 p.m. And it's like, I want them to do so well, but I just worry that they've maybe not had enough time under that tree with Paulie to be able to attack the big bad world. I would like to think, especially after the ending that will come on in part 3 with ECW, when we see that ending between Malenko and Guerrero, when they have that big match, they have the big moment at the end where the fans are just throwing adoration at them. I would like to think they've went backstage, they've showered up, they've packed up their gear, and they've just sat down with Paul Heyman saying, you're going to WCW, I've been there, this is how it works, talking to them about the politics, talking about the way to kind of get ahead and how to keep under the radar and do the right things. And I'd like to think they've had that chat, and I'd like to think that that's going to set them well on their way. But is it going to be enough just getting into the political minefield of WCW? I don't know.
And that will end this month's show. Big thank you firstly to Wayne Lythgoe.
Thanks very much, Bob.
Wayne, you're on Twitter?
I am. Wayne L84.
Excellent. I promised Wayne a spot on next month's show as a response for all his hard work trudging through WCW this year, so Wayne can at least review the first Nitro next month. And Del Muir?
Thanks as always, Bob.
Well, my voice has just about survived, so you weren't required. But
that's just because I talk so much nonsense, just trying to do my boy a favour.
I battled through. Del, you're on Twitter.
Yep, Twitter, Del_Muir.
Excellent. I have been Bob Bamber. My voice is hanging in there. We'll see. It's weird. Like if you listen to the shows in order, hopefully my voice will be better in 8 days' time when we take WWF part. So it'll be fine there. Croaky here. Sore throat in the Japan bit of part 3, and then you get to part 4, which will take 3 weeks ago, and it's fine. So it'll be weird to listen to chronologically. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Bobby Bamber. You can find us on Twitter at Wrestling20YRS. Go on our website, Wrestling20YRS.com. I've been a bit lax on the blog front in the last month. 6 weeks, but I'm getting back into that now. Hopefully by the time you listen to this, there's a few things up here. One thing I've got written that I haven't uploaded yet is a retrospective look at what we've really been discussing, which is the arrival of Benoit, Guerrero, Malenko into WCW, and looking at the WWE revisionist history that the WCW, it was a talent raid, and just looking at the idea behind that. A few other blogs up there as well. Dale should have his July and August power rankings up by the time the show goes live as well. And a few other things too. We have also, if you do like the Collision and Career Show in Part 4. We recorded that 3 weeks ago, so you might get to that in a bit. But I have since done a written version of that, so that's in there if you want to get a written idea of what happened there too. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/wrestling20YRS. Find us on iTunes, leave us a rating and a review. RSS feed is all on the website. Email newsletter, I didn't say one in July, but we'll get one in August out soon. And that'll be that. So you've got Volume 1, you've got SummerSlam, which you've probably already heard. Volume 3 is IWA Japan King of the Deathmatch final. That's an amazing match. Seek the show out too. Second half of Volume 3 is Del and Kieran and Tom to go through ECW. And Volume 4 is me, Stuart and Chris White. We are looking at the New Japan Collision and Career Show. My voice is just about to go, so that's a good time to end it. I've been Bob Bamber. This has been Volume 2 of the August 1995 edition of the Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast. And until next time, goodbye.